All yours.
All right, thanks. Well, good evening. Thanks for being here. Thanks for attending the November 9th Open Council Dialogue meeting. First up on our agenda is for me to tell you welcome. And also we're going to go ahead and do the Girl Scout promise. And Debbie Clark, would you like to lead us?
Unmute.
There we go. Ready?
Mhm.
Now you can hear me.
Yes.
Are we doing this all together, or am I doing it and y'all are just mouthing the words?
Well, we'll be muted, so we'll be able to hear you, but you will not be able to hear us.
Okay. On my honor, I will try to serve God and my country. Excuse me, I just got a crumb.
To help people at all times and to live by the Girl Scout law.
Thanks, Diane, for hitting there. I'm so sorry, Debbie. I didn't mean to do that to you.
No, I just finished dinner and that didn't go down right, whatever it was. Sorry about that.
Okay, so
Thank you,
sorry.
Diane.
Thanks. Okay, next up, I want to go ahead and welcome I see at least one board member. Diane Higgs is here. And are there any other board members on the call this evening? Looking. I don't see any, but please let us know if you're here. Please let us know. Next up, I wanted to welcome board membership voice committee members, myself, Barbara Durick, Rebecca Duncan. I'm looking at the names. I think that might be it. If you're board development, if you are a membership voice committee person and I didn't call your name, please speak up. I think that's everyone. All right, well, thank you. And of course, we have council staff here. We have Jody, who we've all seen on screen. She's helping make sure the meeting happens. Nikki is here. Is that it, or are there other? Molly?
We have Sandy, and we have River, and
hi, Molly. Oh, and Gail. Gail is here from Membership Voice Committee. Yes. Hi, Gail. Sorry, Molly. I'm sorry.
Yep. There you go.
Thanks. Okay. Well, again, thanks for being here. I put the agenda in the chat. Let me do it one more time because I know you aren't able to see things if you join the meeting after something but let me put it in there again. For anybody who didn't get the email or hasn't had a chance to take a look at that. All right, so next up on the agenda is for me to talk a little bit about the Membership Voice Committee. So our committee meets monthly and we work on a variety of things, but the big things that we work on are governance-related matters of the delegate election process, so making sure we have delegates elected, and also reviewing periodically the bylaws and any suggestions for changes to the bylaws. And we'll be talking about the bylaws later in this meeting. One thing for sure to know about the Membership Voice Committee is we do help at the annual meeting. We're responsible for making sure that we get the delegate count done and the credentials report. And part of what you learned when you've done your training to be a delegate is about parliamentary procedure. And I did note on the agenda that part of the training or the manual, the delegate manual, there is a cheat sheet there and some other information about how parliamentary procedure works. And I'm going to assume that there's probably somebody on the call tonight who hasn't done parliamentary procedure. And also, because we're recording this for others to be able to read it, I'm going to be able to watch it later. I'm going to go ahead and explain it briefly. So parliamentary procedure is a guided conversation. It's a way to keep us on track. So when we talk about things at the annual meeting, for example, if we were talking about a change to the bylaws, we would use parliamentary procedures to keep us on track, to keep us focused on the topic at hand, and to keep us from going what they call out of scope. And so the scope of the question, it's easiest to talk about it with numbers. So for example, in our bylaws, it says you have to have 30 days notice for the meeting. we could have a suggestion to change the bylaws for it to be 15 days now, because we live in a world where we don't have to mail things, and we think people can join, people's calendars aren't as full, and that they'd only need 15 days notice. If we had that suggestion up, and that's what was being proposed from committee to change the bylaws, then the scope of that question is between 15 and 30 days. So you could make amendments during the discussion and amendment period of the discussion about that change. Someone could say, no, I think we need to have 20 days. Or someone could say, I think we need to have 25 days. But you couldn't say less than 15, and you couldn't say more than 30. Does that make sense? I'm seeing a few nods. So that's what the scope of a question is. And that's the most complicated thing that we might get into. Now, there's nothing like that coming up with the bylaws changes that we're suggesting this year, but there is a change that when we get to it about the way we communicate. And there could be some suggestions for amendments there. And so we would need to keep it in line with, it can't go outside of the scope. So we probably, when we get there, we'll look at that and we'll discuss it real quick when we get to it. And I'll ask you what you think would be the scope of that question. Anyway, at the annual meeting, you'll have the cheat sheet there with you, so you don't have to memorize those, making a motion and calling the question. You don't have to memorize any of that. It's going to be there with you. You'll be able to use the chart if you want to make a motion or to rise to answer or ask a question. The other thing that's in the delegate manual are the contact information for all of the Membership Voice Committee members. And I've been saying at all the other meetings that it was on page 3, and I have confirmed it's not page 3, it's page 5. But you'll find a list of us and our contact information. You can also email MVC, Membership Voice Committee, at gsvsc.org, and it will come to me. Is there any burning questions or anybody from the Membership Voice Committee that would like to add anything about Membership Voice Committee and what we do? Okay. All right. So next up, we're going to talk about, we're going to go to our adult journey. This was conceived of, this is a brand new activity that we started this year. And you're going to be the 4th group to do it with me. So it's always a little different no matter which group we use, because what we're doing here is we're talking about those questions that were gathered. So the adult journey is just like a girl journey in some ways. We have a discover part, a connect part, and a take action part. And what we wanted to do in the discover part this year was Rebecca Duncan from our Membership Voice Committee and Donna Gwill helped plan this, and they called and talked to service unit managers and key leaders from around the council and gathered up a bunch of questions that were common questions people were asking. And then we submitted them to council to get the answers, and then I sent them all out to you who had registered, and I'll drop them here in the chat too. Just a second. Why don't I see that file? I don't want to, I'll get it for you in just a second. While someone else is talking, I don't want to pause too long for the recording, but there's a list of questions, and we would like to see for you all, was there any question when you looked at that document that you'd like to talk about? So this is the connecting piece. This is let's connect about those questions. And did you learn anything when you read that? Did you learn something new? Or is there something you'd like more information about on that list of questions? And while you're thinking about that, I'll find the files for anybody who was just registered in the last day, and I'll get it added to the No, it helps when I was looking for a file that started with the word question instead of 2023. That's why I couldn't find it. Here you go. Any questions that you thought were something you'd like to talk about? Well, this is going to be the quickest meeting in the history of members of Open Council Dialogue meetings if we don't have anything that you want to discuss. And that's fine. If you felt satisfied with the answers that were given and you didn't have anything you want to discuss, that is absolutely okay. We can move on to the next part of the agenda.
How about
I see somebody with their hand up. Jonquil.
Okay, so I believe it was the 4 weeks out notification for event activity under programming.
Okay.
We need clarification on that one because I actually was just looking at this today and I was going over the P1 part of the troop activity form, and it's not quite clear enough of whether or not we need to actually fill the form out, because when our service unit leaders came back and they were like, you have to fill this out, at this point, do we have to fill it out for everything regardless? Like, that's where we all are kind of getting stuck at. Like, we're being told we have to fill it out regardless, especially if we're leaving our meeting area, regardless. And that's where we're all kind of like, oh, what are we doing? We don't know what we're supposed to do because all the information is being disseminating isn't quite clear. And so when we saw that information come down, we weren't sure. So, for instance, I want to take my girls to go see the Christmas lights in Roanoke at Explorer Park. That's not a dangerous activity. Do I have to, I live in Martinsville, Henry County. Do I have to submit a troop form for that?
Okay, it's been a while since I did training, so is Jody, would you be the right person to answer this?
It does. It's based on the activity. I mean, I can review the policy for you if you want. The policy is supposed to dictate that, but also it's an activity trip permission form. So I don't know, Jonko, if you've seen the updated safety activity checkpoints that
I did, and it didn't meet any of that. And that's why I was so confused, because our service unit leader was like, just fill it out, just fill it out, just fill it out. And I'm like, wait a minute, I don't want to fill it out if I don't have to.
No, because it's extra work. Then that's the whole point. Like, if it's an activity that's not high risk, that doesn't meet that P1 policy, camping outdoors, and again, I don't have them all memorized. I can pull it up and share it with you. But if it doesn't meet that top, it's A, B, C, D, E, F, G, I think, right? If it doesn't fall in one of those, then no, you don't have to have permission. And it's not about, I think you used a different word, but high risk. If it's not a high risk activity, you should always refer to your safety activity checkpoints, which is going to let you know if that's a high risk activity. If there's not an activity checkpoint for the activity, because, GSUSA can't cover everything, right? You can reach out and say, hey, is this high risk? Do we need to have, there it is. Thank you for putting it.
Yes, River put it there. Yes, so, exactly. Yeah. And that wouldn't fall under it. And so that's where we were trying to get clarification, because there's a few times where we're just like, well, what is a new clarification? Because it was it extended the timeline a little bit about when we were supposed to submit and everything, and we weren't quite sure what it meant for how long we were supposed to put out and what exactly it clarified for what we were submitting for. So we were just told, just submit for everything, especially if we were leaving Martinsville, Henry County. I mean, obviously, if we cross the border, we know that, but because we're leaving the state. But if we're not leaving the state, then it's one thing. But if I'm just going to Roanoke to see the Christmas lights, that's another thing.
Right. So if your Christmas lights, parades, those kind of things are not, are not high risk activities, then they would not fall. But if you ever need clarification whether, again, sometimes there's an activity that may not be spelled out clearly in a safety activity checkpoint. Please do reach out. But yes, that's A, B, C, D, E, F, G. That tells you, and it's the activities that present a greater risk. And if they present a greater risk, there's going to be a safety activity checkpoint 9 times out of 10. Does that help you?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, great.
Jody, some of our activities are talk about being outside the community. And so I don't know if she's coming to Roanoke, which I'm glad that she is for the lights, if that would be outside the community for her.
It doesn't matter. So that the policy was updated a while back. And it's basically a day or overnight trip that includes non-registered participants, trips or overnights of 2 nights or 3 days or more, travel outside the continental U.S., camping activities, which include backyard camping, campfires, outdoor cooking, and cabin camping, and programs that include human sexuality and related health issues are activities that present a greater risk. So that boundary that we used to have in place a long time ago, the previous policy talked about community boundaries. Those boundaries were removed to make it easier. And so there's less paperwork. That's the whole point. Don't make paperwork for yourself that you don't need. So hopefully that helps. But it's A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And if it's G, check safety activity checkpoints.
So I have two questions, Jody. In my past, walking in a parade was considered a high risk activity. Is that still?
Nope. DSUC changed that, and that you'll see that on the new.
That's great. It's brand new. Like it's just been a long time, so I wondered.
Yeah,
but it is true that anytime the girls are taken outside of their regular meeting time, they need a permission slip still.
Yeah.
Okay.
So parent permission, yes.
Parent permission.
Anytime you travel from the meeting place with girls, you have to have parent permission. And Jennifer said a day or night, I missed that part. B is a day or overnight trip outside of council boundaries. So if you're going outside of the council, then yes, because there's reasons why we have to have permission. So Jen, I see your hands raised. If you'd like to ask a question, absolutely.
Yeah, next. Yes, thanks.
Thanks. I have 2, and I'm gonna start with well, I don't know. They're both relatively small, but I saw in the questions about the registration system for council, and people were confused by it, and there was a reference to Camp Brain for the camp registrations. And this is probably just a question for council's staff. If you're registering for more than one camp in Camp Brain, you still have to complete a full health history for your girl, even though the questions may be the same and have the same answers. And I will tell you that those health history forms are really intense to fill out. So having to do it like 2 times in a row, if you're filling in, registering for 2 camps is, we've had parents certainly complain about that. So I wanted to know if there was any way that like information in the field could carry over between registrations for an individual.
So it is supposed to. So just so you know, when you've done it once, it's supposed to carry over. Just to answer your question, yes, it's supposed to carry over. So you just have to review it. But I will tell you, this will be my first year resetting the system for next year. So I don't know when it was reset last year, if it was reset. We've only had, let me just say, Camp Brain is new. It's new, still learning, and they're still updating things. Yes, you are correct that the health forms have to be repeated because there are different sets of volunteers and we have to be in compliance with HIPAA.
Sure, of course, I understand that.
So that, and unfortunately, there's different sets of volunteers that run different camps. So just so you understand, but yes, to answer your question, it's supposed to carry over. So I want you to know that's one of my duties this year, to make sure that it carries over. The only where you would probably have to add is to say a question changed, or we had to add something. Does that help you?
That does. So if I am doing that next year for next year's camp and it does not work, I should reach out, because we did 2 different, we did Sugar Hollow Day Camp last year, and we also did Trefoil Academy. And obviously Trefoil Academy is a residential camp, so they have a much more complete health section, which is fine, and I get that, but none of the information for the questions that were the same carried over, which was annoying. And I have heard other parents say that. My other question was about the budget. So I looked today and went and looked at the fiscal year budget, the current fiscal year budget on the website. And I noticed that what is provided is this year's budget and last year's budget, but there's no information on actual financials from last year. And I wondered if that is, maybe it's just too soon because the fiscal year ended fairly recently.
That is correct. It is too soon. We'll get the audited numbers and they will be available in the annual report at the annual meeting.
In January,
Okay.
yeah.
In January. So when we have our annual meeting, that's when we usually report out the actual money, the actual like revenue and expenses statement.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
I want to say thank you to you for using your resources wisely, going to the website and actually looking at the budget. Thank you for doing that. I appreciate it.
Well, I work with nonprofits for my day job, so that's like a thing that I'm paying attention to.
I appreciate that you did that. Okay, Amy, I see you have a question.
Wait, Holly, hold on just a second. We had 2 other chats. For whatever reason, people keep direct messaging me instead of everybody else. So I just want to let you know there's 2 direct messages that I want to share after you talk with Amy.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Jody, for letting me know.
Yep.
Amy.
All right, here I am to ask you guys questions. Number one, this goes back to long ago. The money from the sale of the camps. At the time, I understand it was supposed to go into programming. What is the status of that money at this point? And do we have any ideas about how it has been spent? That's question number one.
I can start the answer that I know that some of the money has been used over the time that it's been set. It was set aside and earmarked for exactly that, Amy, specifically for the camps and the camp property and program there. I'm going to let Diane talk here in a minute because she's going to know more than I do. But there was money set aside.
It was not set aside for programming. It was set aside for property.
Okay.
But let me say that money is not, I think she's talking about way back like 20 years ago when they sold the other camps, Holly.
Exactly. That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah,
about.
that's what I'm talking about. When we sold the property that shall not be named. We when those properties were sold, the money was set aside and it's been used to, when I said program, I meant it's supporting program at the camp. So it was set aside to the maintenance and the maintenance of the camp properties to support the programming at the camps. And over time, money has been spent from that fund to do certain things. And Diane, then I was going to ask you to talk about some of the things that money has been spent on recently.
Okay, my dog has decided he's going to join the meeting if you hear him. In recent years, the money has been used for all kinds of things because that was 2007. All of it was directed at property or programming at the properties. I wish I had the year in front of me, but several years ago, the board voted to use part of the money for deferred maintenance. And we had started that about 2017. And it began with the purchase of tractors and equipment to actually maintain the gravel driveways and mow and things like that. We've used that money to build the cabinets. We've used that money to repair roofs. We had the mold issue at Sugar Hollow. All of those things, that is where that money is coming from. Roofs, I guess the problem is there are still so many problems out there. We're not really seeing a huge, I don't want to say a huge improvement. Any improvement is good, but That's the problem. There's still just not enough money to take care of everything at one time.
Right.
And Diane, I'd like to let me add, Amy. So I can add from coming in late 2017. And yes, Diane's right. The board set aside about $300,000 to use for updates on the property. But I don't know that everyone understands the financial situation that we were in as far as reserves. The board setting that aside was really a commitment to property, because at the time, we had less than 2 months reserves in the bank prior to getting to the point where they set aside the $300,000. So between 2007 and 2017, as Diane said, and Holly, that money had been used for a lot of things, and what was left is part of what that $300,000 that they set aside to make sure that it was for maintenance and the deferred maintenance for the last 15 years that have been at the properties.
We do actually have a list of every penny that was spent. It's all the way back to the first dollar. I have seen it.
Yeah, it's a monthly board report. You all get a copy every month. Yep.
Did that answer your question, Amy?
Yes, it's just that, at the time that the camps were sold, I had the impression that it was going to be, used to like upgrade things, to like add things. And I can understand, maintenance issues. It's just that I just don't see where we've increased the programming opportunities for the girls and adults. Does that make sense? It just seems like
we agree. We agree, Amy. And here's what I'll tell you: the maintenance has to happen first. And let me give you an example. Like at the Gay Lodge, and these are things that happen that, as Diane said, they're not the sexy projects that everyone sees and says, oh, you can tell there's a brand new building out there. But this is one of those, in Gay Lodge, the air conditioning system that was bought. And it was somewhere in that 10 years, right, between 2007 and 2017. I don't know because I wasn't here then. I can't remember the exact date, but it was bought. And at the time, and we know this because the person who serviced that put in our new one, the person said, you don't want to buy this air conditioner. The actual material that goes in it is going to be obsolete in the next 5 to 10 years. And we still purchased it anyway. And at the time we needed to, because of finances. We were in a place where that was considerably less expensive. And lo and behold, when it's time to repair it and to put those items in it, they don't exist anymore. And we have to take it out and put another brand new entire central air system in there. So when we say maintenance, it's not just like, as you're thinking, maintenance, repairing steps. There's some really large things that have happened that have to be done, as we talked about at Sugar Hollow with multipurpose and all the mold that was in there, and having to dig the French drain in the back and get all of that done. There are a lot of things like that again, we say that fall under maintenance that may not be exactly what you're thinking.
Right, I understand that. It's just, to me, it's a bit disheartening that we sold the camps because they weren't being used. And the idea, I thought, was to make things so that people would go to the camps. And I just don't see that happening. But I understand perfectly.
I do think that there was some work done, if I remember correctly, archery related and a few other things that were smaller projects. But Amy, we'd all love to see us be able to do more at the properties, and hopefully in the near future we'll see some progress there. What was your other question?
My other question was the grant that we got last year. I understand that part of that was used to send staff to Edith Macy. How has the rest of that grant been earmarked?
So if you remember, we talked about that actually the grant was used for 3 items to invest in our 3, as we call them, the 3 really the pillars or the important community members in our organization. First was membership. We had girl membership open to anyone last membership year who wanted to participate. Second was the volunteer conference. And then third was staff training. And then the rest of it is still in our cash flow.
All righty. Thank you for that information.
How much is left?
I can't answer that for you directly, Barbara, because it's all in our cash flow analysis. So I can't tell you how much of that particular grant is there. It's all together in the bank. And this is a lean time because obviously money hasn't come in from our cookie programs. There's about $1 million total that we have, not including our endowment and other pieces. But again, GSUSA, part of our charter agreement is that we maintain at least 6 months of reserves in cash.
And Jody also mentioned in the chat there was a service unit team event, camp out. Okay. Debbie.
Question about goes back to trip permission forms. One of the recommendations was that to speed the process along, that we verify our adults' membership status prior to sending these in so that there's no question about those. That works extremely well for service units and troops. It will not work for adventurers, because we don't have those people in a GS account. Our people are random all over the council. So I'm asking for your suggestion on how we proceed with that. If we have adults that we want to verify, yes, we can verify our own adventurer people, our volunteers. But if we have parents or what have you that are going to participate with us for some reason, we have no access to that information.
Hey, Debbie, that was for us to say, if you're sending this in, one thing that will speed that up is that way. That's a normal part of our process, is to verify everyone's membership anyway. So we're doing it. We're just saying, if you're going to, in a troop or service unit, like you said, if you know you're sending it in and you say, Susie, are you going? Are you a member? You have that conversation prior to sending it. But that's a normal part of the process. So no, we're going to check it anyway.
Okay. We thought that was the case. I just wanted to make sure, yeah. If somebody has any expectation and we verified that, we can't.
No, we're just saying, help us if you can. That will make it quicker. One less thing. Or when we go in, and they're done, it's much quicker than then having to follow up with people. And that's what can hold up trip permissions. If there's 5 people who aren't registered or background checked, that can really hold it up.
Right. Okay. And then I have another question that also goes back to property. And this sort of goes back to money and maintenance and what have you. So it's been 3 years now plus that the bunkhouse at SAC has been down. And a significant amount of money and time and energy and effort was put into rehabilitating one side of that bunkhouse. And now my understanding is that they're going to tear it down anyhow. So where do we stand with that at this point in time? Because right now we effectively do not have a camp where we can have a large group gathering of adults, or in the wintertime, because there's no place to accommodate or lodge all these people.
So yes, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I was going to say the answer to that is in those notes, right, about bunkhouse and why we ended up at the place. And Diane, feel free to jump in if you want to add to it. Yes, Tim started working on it. So let me explain sort of the background on bunkhouse. Well, and we talked about this on several town halls. So I'm sorry if you've heard this multiple times before. But it was made out of what we call OSB, which is not a system or not material that is used anymore. And essentially, it's like mortarboard, plywood, not even plywood, like foam board, almost like foam board, kind of put together. The issue with that, or what happened at that point, is it would have been fine, except for at the time we did not put, for various reasons, we did not put flashing around the building. So that is a material that absorbs water. And without the flashing, every drop of rain that has ever hit that building went off the roof and directly into the walls. So as a material that absorbs water, that is what happened. Tim worked with, at the time, there was one person he found in the country who knew how to do that. He started work on, and the guy was backed up for many years because of COVID. And Tim said, this is the way that I think it should work. And the guy said, yes, that's absolutely correct. So Tim was doing the work internally, which was much more cost effective than hiring out. And then ultimately, as we started talking with our attorneys and insurance, because of liability at this point, the suggestion is to rebuild totally.
And I am going to add to what Nikki's saying. It was Tim's time, and it was a lot of time. It was not as much money as you might think.
Oh. So yes, sadly, a piece of property that we would have hoped would have lasted a long time. I went back and found it. It was dedicated in 2008, in August of 2008. Something we thought would last much, much longer than it has. But sadly, it is going to have to be rebuilt.
Is there any way to get another opinion on that? It looks like
there have been multiple opinions already gathered. It is a decision at this point.
And it's our insurance, Barbara. We're not really, I mean, if we want to stay insured, we can't not do what they tell us.
So do we have any kind of time frame on that? I mean, effectively, we have no place to go these days.
I think the problem right this minute, Debbie, is that the property committee is just getting back on its feet. And yes, we're going to need just a little bit of time to be able to answer that question. I wish we had a quick one, but we really, I don't think we do.
I know it's a priority.
Ask us in January.
Yes, absolutely.
Ask us in January, which I know feels like a long time, but
it's absolutely a priority. It's something that I've heard, we know it's an issue and it's a priority to find it. Unfortunately, what cost $100,000 in 2008 to do costs 3 times that now or more. And so we have to find a way to make it happen and use our money wisely. So it's absolutely, Debbie, something that everybody knows and cares about. And we all wish that we had a magic wand and could fix it overnight.
Debbie, I was at Camp Sac last weekend and Pavilion's not there. So Pavilion needs to be replaced. And then at Sugar Hollow, there's needs there too. And of course at Ishamani, we're looking for a unit. I think if the volunteers would form friends group of our camps, that maybe that they could take on some of the money earning projects and help maintain our camps.
So, okay. At this point, I want to be mindful of our time, and I want to say that let's take a moment and reflect on the questions that we've talked about. So absolutely, questions about finance and how the money's being spent and our budget. That absolutely is related to governance. Absolutely. But the day-to-day operations piece, so forms and procedures, does it make sense to you all that that's really operations? That's not governance. That's not something that we deal with at the governance level. It's not part of our bylaws. Some of it could be part of the policies that I almost said university, sorry, that the council uses. And those policies, the big P, I call them capital P policies, are something that the board votes on. So we do need to be informed in order to vote on those policies. But much of what we've talked about so far is more operational than it is governance. And I just want to keep you thinking that way. So absolutely during the Open Council Dialogue meetings, we want to hear what's going on and we want to know your concerns. And this activity was really about kind of sunlighting things, making sure that everybody's aware, everybody knows these are questions that need to be answered. And I want to challenge you in the next couple minutes to think about ways, the take action piece. So how can we as the volunteers, and yes, board members are volunteers too, how can we take action to help? So I'll give you an example. If you see something that needs to be done, how do you report it? How do you report something at the camps? How do you report something that needs to be done? Say, for example, you noticed a step that needs to be repaired. What do you do?
I'm assuming that all has to route through info, or am I incorrect in that?
Well, my understanding is there's a form, the WUFU form, that you fill out for that.
I've never seen it, and I have no idea what it is, and I bet nobody else does either.
Okay, so on these questions that you were given, the answers with the questions, there's a link to that form.
And
right, there's a camp report form that you're supposed to fill out, that you list any problems that are present at the program center. I've always been of the opinion that if it was a major safety issue, that not only would I send the form in, but I would place a phone call to make sure that it is brought to the attention of the maintenance people immediately.
And that is helpful. And I just want to say that that form is linked in your reservation. So anyone that receives their reservation, and we can talk to customer care about moving it up at the top maybe because you're missing it. But it is linked always in that confirmation, just so you know.
And so Amy, thank you, because you've answered the second thing I was going to ask. What do you do if you don't hear about it? Or what do you do if you're not sure someone knows? Another take action piece is to make a phone call and make sure somebody knows. We're all busy, but if there's something, especially like Amy, you said, that's dangerous or that you're really concerned about, making sure you've made that phone call, you've made that second attempt to make sure, or send it, even if you just sent in an info message as well as filling out the report, and make sure that it's multiple people have seen that there's an issue. What are some other ways as volunteers that we can help each other and help our council staff to get what needs to be done? Because sometimes we think somebody knows something, but they don't. What can we do to help? Amy, go ahead.
Yes, one thing that can be done at the service unit level, or, in your, whatever area you function in, whether it be like through the adventurers or regular service unit, is with people who are new to the game, to help them out when they're going to fill out forms, or, if they have questions, to use years of expertise to help them understand how to do something and why they need to do it.
Thank you. And one of the pieces, I think Debbie, you were the one who was talking about it, was the, making sure that all the people that are going with you on a trip are registered. That's a simple thing that we can do as volunteers before we send in paperwork to help. Now, obviously, for adventurers, that's different. But for troops, if you make sure that all the adults that are going have been registered, that's a help, right? That's one less thing that has to be done. The council's going to check it too, but if you've made sure it's been done, it's not going to slow down the process. They're just going to be able to check and see, yes, the registration's there. Now, I did notice I don't want to miss, I remember, Jody, you had 2 questions, and then there's one here about the time frame, about how long it takes to get volunteers. What was this? It was Kim's.
That was one of, so she had one. I was going to go back up though, because we missed Amo's comment, and I'm trying to find it now. There's a lot. Okay. So direct message. I can't seem to find my hand. My question is about the tents at Sugar Hollow. When are they going to be repaired? So that was one of the questions about property. And she basically said that she was embarrassed about the conditions they were in for her training. that they had. So I'll stop there. I don't know if y'all want to answer that.
I do not know the answer to that, Diane.
Diane's shaking her head no.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can hear that question.
I don't have an answer for that either.
And then Kim's first question was, will these chat notes be emailed out? I'm trying to copy the chat for my co-leaders, but it won't allow her. So I think I fixed that, Kim. So hopefully you can, if you can't, yes, we can get a condensed copy of the chat if that's needed. And then Kim had another question, and I'm trying to go back and find it. So let's scroll down. So we've been updating our volunteers with several parents willing to take on new roles. 3 of us had delays with struggles with registration, and 1 is waiting on confirmation about registering as a cookie contact.
I sent that to Sandy, Jody, already.
Yeah. So Sandy's going to reach out about making sure that they're ready. So.
Oh, is that, so we covered all the things that were direct message to you, Jody?
I think so. I think that was the only one left.
And they're coming to everyone. I'm getting them too. So I think they've now switched. Thank you.
Yeah, I fixed it.
Yeah. It depends. Sometimes I can't see all the ones you're talking about. So it's not, I don't know what's going on, but some of the things that you've talked about, I can't see. So that's why I was asking.
Yeah.
Okay.
Holly, can I ask one thing? We're getting lots of property questions there, and lots of you all work or camp mostly at one camp. I'd like for you to put those repairs in a priority list. What would you like to see us do first, and work your way down, and just send it to me. You don't have to. I mean, that would be a help.
Okay. Yeah. Can you put your contact information in the chat, please?
I certainly can.
Thank you. I do not know what's going on here. Okay.
We also had a question about the council staff directory, and we shared the link to that, and just responded about the approved vendor list being maintained. So I know the program staff are working on that. And I did kind of explain that some of the delays are because the vendors don't provide us an updated certificate of insurance. That can be in struggle. So, but if there is a certain vendor you want on the list, please send it to info@, because they will work on it.
Excellent.
We just
sure, Crystal, go ahead and ask your question.
Yep.
Okay, so I was just made aware of these types of meetings being held just yesterday, and I was asked to join because I put across a couple points that they thought would be good to bring up in this meeting. I am currently a parent troop leader over Juliet, and this is the second time I've had a girl in Girl Scouts. And the first time I had a girl in Girl Scouts was from, let's just say, about 20 years ago, until about 7 years ago. And there was an issue or a big misunderstanding then about the money that my first girl was earning being rolling over from year to year so she could accumulate and save to go on possible big trips. And we remember specifically one trip that we were saving for just before she graduated high school. There was a trip to Europe happening, and we thought it would be a great graduation present for her, and she could use part of the money that she had earned in Girl Scouts. And when it came time to register for the trip, it was then brought to our attention that all the money that she had earned that we thought could go towards the trip had expired. Now, I had asked questions in advance over a year prior to make sure that my understanding of how the money could roll over would actually happen. And then we got that bad news at the very last minute. The reason I bring that up is because when I had the second girl in Girl Scouts, who just started last year, I brought up the same question. I brought up the question of whether or not the money that the Girl Scout earned, earns could roll over from year to year and be saved to accumulate. And I got so many different answers. I didn't know which one was the correct one. And I got from one council member that yes, it does roll over. She can keep accumulating until she wants to use it. And then I got another answer from staff, or I'm sorry, another council member, that it didn't roll over, that each time a girl participates in a program, the money earned only lasts a certain amount of time and then it expires. Is there a way to change that? Or is there a way to get 100% clarification on that matter?
Sandy can answer that for you right now. There is a Juliet, there's an information packet that you should have gotten as a parent of a Juliet. We can certainly share it with you again, that will answer that, but we can completely answer. And I unfortunately, I can't respond to what happened 20 years ago. I'm sorry that it wasn't more clear is what I can say. I hate that. Sandy, are you on? Can you jump in?
Yes, I'll be glad
Thank
to.
you.
So the Juliets or individually registered girls earn program credits, not actually cash. And so the program credits there has been some confusion years ago, yes. But the program credits, provided we know that the girl wants them to be extended, can be extended and kept track of. The unfortunate thing is we can't leave all of the girls in Troops as well as Juliet's cookie dough out there to be used forever. It is too much of a burden to carry forward for years and years and years. It's an accounting practice issue. But to have certain girls that are going to continue in a Juliet program or individually registered program is a little different because they cannot have a bank account. They do not have cash. We are happy to help keep track of that going forward. We just need to know. Now, we explain this in the cookie program, in the fall program, when we have parent Juliet training. But so far as Jody can speak better than I can to anything that's documented for onboarding. Hope that helps. If not, just let me know.
Did that answer your question?
I do apologize. I'm actually participating in this meeting while I'm driving down the road. And I ran into a bad service area, and a lot of what you said was very choppy. But I did get the gist of what you said. What I'm hearing, if I heard it correctly, is that it can be considered that a Juliet specifically program money that and I understand it's not cash, it's credits that are earned because we get the little cards of how much she has earned. I understand.
What Crystal, what she said, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, what she said is yes, it can be carried over. We just need to know that. If you don't let us know, it won't be. So you need to reach out, and it can't be held over forever, right? There's going to be but if you say she's saving to go to Europe in 3 years, yes, we can carry it over. You just need to reach out and let us know.
Okay, so when I enrolled my Juliet just last year, and she will only be in Girl Scouts until she turns 18. She was enrolled at 15. So she's only going to be in Girl Scouts for a total of 3 years. So this is not a long running thing. I mentioned that that's how I would like it to be done. And I was told that it could not happen that way.
Excuse me, I apologize. I don't know who it was or who responded to you, but the bottom line is you would get a generic coupon like everyone else does with an expiration date on it. But we train because those are only issued through the product program, we train in the product programs to the Juliet parents to say it can be carried forward, but you do have to notify us. So it's a matter of it's available. But for us to put, you can use this forever on just the Juliets, really isn't practical because we have to book an accounting record of the liability and carry it forward years and years and years. So we don't want to carry all that liability on the books if it's not going to be truly carried forward. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's yeah.
Okay.
So if you
great.
want to reach out to us specifically about last year and this year, let us know.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Just reach out directly to Sandy.
Yeah. I'll put my email in the chat.
Okay. All right. We do need to kind of move forward in the agenda. I see, Amy, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say something really quickly. The adventurers, I believe, Sandy, that the girls can use those credits and put them towards adventurers trips. Is that not correct?
It is correct. And we have done that several times in the past years. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So if a girl is saving money for a trip to Europe, it's more than likely going, if she's a Juliet, it's going to be an adventurer's trip. So that's something they can bear in mind. If they're a Juliet, they can apply those monies to the adventurer's account, and we do hold them because they're considered payments towards a trip, and those trips have an individual bank account.
Well, I was actually just told by counsel over a couple of different adventurer trips that her program money could not be used towards an adventurer trip because it was through adventurers that had to be paid for out of pocket.
No, ma'am.
No, I'm sorry. I don't know who told you that. It is incorrect. I have worked with adventurers over the years, more so I would say in the last 3 or 4 years because we've had an increase in Juliets. But we want them to be able to use that. We don't want them to lose it, but just understand that it's an accounting issue is why we have to handle it this way. So as long as you let us know or your daughter lets us know, and it'd be good to have a target date. Like if she wants to use it in 2 years or 3 years, obviously she can't use it as an adult, but so like you said, it would only be 3 years possible, but we don't want to carry that over from 1 year to the next unless we know that's the plan.
Right. And Crystal, I would make the suggestion that you that you send in a case at info@ for those questions. If you just were asking someone, and the reason is that should go directly to Sandy if it's about cookie dough money, and that should go directly to her, and she would have obviously given you that answer. So I would make sure that you try to send that in if you can, so that we can make sure we get you the correct answer.
Okay, yes, ma'am. I have actually sent in the request for her program money, my Girl Scouts program money, to be used towards an adventurer trip to the info website. I'm sorry, the info email. And my response was, because this is through the adventurers, we cannot use her program money. And I would have to go back in my emails to see who directly it came from.
Crystal, we could. This is Jody. I can look that up for Sandy and make sure that she gets it. So we'll find that for you. I don't want you to have to do that.
Well, we know going forward that we can. So please make sure and spread the word.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So it's being corrected. They absolutely can save it up. We just need to know in advance.
Right. But just to clarify with the adventurers, they can't just put money to the adventurers. We require that they earmark it for a trip or an event. Does that make sense? Because we just don't hold money, just like Sandy said, we don't hold money out there. It has to be earmarked.
I got you, but I think we might be talking about two separate things now.
Right.
This was just this year. I wanted to pay for an adventurers event with her program money, and I was told we could not do that.
Okay. It sounds like Jody, you and Sandy will be able to help with this. I feel like what I've learned from this is something I didn't know about how cookie dough works. And because back when the last time I was in charge of a cookie sale, we didn't I was a troop leader. So I would have answered that question wrong. And so it is important to figure out how someone from the info got it wrong. So I'm sure that Jody and Sandy will be able to figure it out for you and get you on the right track. Thanks for
Holly,
the system that thanks for using the system that was in place to try and get an answer. And thanks for speaking up and letting us know that you need help. All right, Nikki, what did you need?
I was just going to say, I was going to make this was going to be an opportunity for me to make a plug for, please make sure we have every month, there is either a service unit roundtable or a town hall. We alternate them each month. This is the opportunity for us to update you on any major things that are happening in the council, property updates, that kinds of things. Those are the places to bring these types of questions every single month. If there's some operational issue that you're having, please, if you haven't sent it in, please jump on those calls so that we can work on getting those things solved quickly instead of letting them sit and wait for months. We want to make sure we're solving your issues as quickly as possible.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for the conversation. And really, in the end, what I want to encourage us all to do is to think about when there is a, to follow up with what Nikki said, and actually Amy brought it up too, make sure that you reach out. If you hear something you don't think is right, or you don't think the answer makes sense to you, or it doesn't add up to what you've been told before, ask again. Long time ago, I think it was my father, but I'm not sure who said it to me first. The answer is no if you don't ask. If you don't keep asking questions to get to an answer, you'll just be stuck with an answer of no. So I appreciate, Crystal, thank you for bringing up that. And we'll get that. I'm sure that they will be able to figure it out for you. But just keep asking questions if you don't feel like you understand. And like Nikki said, you don't have to wait till an open council dialogue meeting to do it. There are town hall meetings every other month, and we also have, for the service unit managers, there's a service unit meeting the opposite every other month. And so there's opportunities there to bring up opportunities for you to bring up things in those meetings so that they don't have to wait until the fall or until you see someone in the grocery store. It's better to go ahead and get those taken care of right away. All right, so we're going to go ahead and move on from this piece of the conversation to looking at the bylaws. Let me get that open so I can share it. Okay, let me do this so I can see you all. So about 2 years ago, a little bit more than 2 years ago, the Membership Voice Committee did a full review of the bylaws. It was just after we'd all shut down for the pandemic. We did a complete review of the bylaws. And these are suggested changes that came from the Membership Voice Committee. And all we're going to do at this point is look at the changes. We're not going to look at every page of the bylaws. So the first suggested change in blue here is something that would have helped us in the position that we're in right now. Is we don't have we had a lot of service unit service units that stopped meeting during the time of the pandemic, where meetings weren't happening during the more locked down part of the pandemic. And some of them haven't gotten back to meeting yet. It's rebuilding time. We're rebuilding membership and rebuilding that volunteer leadership structure. And so during that time, we had some people who had been elected delegates, but because they were one-year terms, their term had expired. And now we don't have enough delegates elected to do some of the business we need to do. So this change, adding or until a new member is elected, would have solved that problem for us. We would have people elected, unless they resigned or stopped being a Girl Scout, we would have people elected to be delegates. So that's why that is there. And then the or elected as National Council delegates piece is they're mentioned as a member of the voting body in one place, but they weren't mentioned here, and we needed to just clean that up. And so it's not really a change, it's just adding them to be mentioned here as they were earlier in the document. The next piece that when we reviewed the bylaws, we were saying emailed or faxed. And how many of you use a fax machine on a regular basis? I'm guessing if I could see your faces, you would be shaking your head no, because most of us don't use fax machines anymore. So we could mail, email, or fax you information. Well, we started thinking about that, and we realized that we were never going to come up with a comprehensive list of all the different ways we could communicate with people. And in bylaws are things you should change infrequently. You shouldn't have to change them often. So what we're suggesting here is to say electronically communicated. So we can mail something to you or electronically communicate it with you. And that's, you know, it could be a text message, but it could be the kind of communication we haven't even thought of yet. So that's what that change is about. And you'll see this change happens throughout, because that phrase is throughout the bylaws. Another thing that wasn't in our bylaws, it was only in our bylaws for board meetings and meetings of the board meetings or meetings of the board, in between regularly scheduled board meetings, was that we didn't really have a provision for Zoom meetings. We absolutely did it during the pandemic because that was the only way we could meet, but it wasn't provisioned in the bylaws. And so we're adding this section for the annual meeting to say that we can have an annual meeting through means that provide synchronous communication for participants in the meeting. And a member participating in the meeting by this means is deemed to be present in person at the meeting. Here is just another place where we were changing emailed or fax to electronically communicated. And here is for special meetings, the same phrase, but instead of saying annual meeting, it says special meeting. Just it allows us to have those meetings virtually that we were doing, but it spells it out that we're actually allowed to do it in the bylaws. Here we are suggesting removed the phrase geographically diverse location, because our policy influencing meetings, the meeting you're in right now, open council dialogue meetings, are being held more and more virtually. And there's no way we could think of that you could make a virtual meeting geographically diverse. We can't do that. So because we're doing many of our meetings virtually, requiring them to be geographically diverse didn't make sense. And so that is why we were suggesting removing that phrase. And this was just because we're going to go on to the next piece. There's nothing changing here, but also under regular policy influencing meeting, we are suggesting changing to having at least one in person instead of two. And then you'll see that it used to say here that the communication with all members could simultaneously hear one another and participate. And it was during an open council dialogue meeting when we were looking at these changes a year ago that someone said, oh, wait, we shouldn't say hear because not everybody can hear. So that's why we changed the phrase to be synchronously communicate. Here is about terms of office in the board of directors, and it's in practice something we've done, but it wasn't spelled out in the bylaws, that a person can serve 3 consecutive terms as an at-large board member and then go on to serve terms as an officer. That's something in practice that we've done. And of course, in Girl Scouts, progression is important, right? You learn how to do something and then you let the girls do the next more complicated thing. Well, we certainly don't want people who've served on the board to not take an officer position because they ran out of time to be able to serve. And so that's what that is about. This is another example of just the emailed or faxed piece being changed. And here's another place where we had the hearing language and we're putting in the synchronous communication language. Here, and there's one other case where this occurs. This change was made back in 2014, and then it just the 3 part here had been changed, but we missed the word second being changed to third. And it really is something we could have just corrected, but because we're suggesting changes to the bylaws, we're bringing it forward that we're making that correction. I have since, this is not a change. This was just a hyphen word. instead of a all in one word. This is no, there is no change here. And I meant to fix this slide. This isn't actually a change. Here's the other place where the third was second, and it should be third. And then this is like the biggest change to the bylaws. It's adding an article, Article 15, and it's temporary actions during an emergency. And it says, when a membership meeting with quorum cannot be convened because of special or unforeseen circumstances, such as a pandemic, natural disaster, or emergency is declared by the local, state, or national government, the board may temporarily elect to make decisions and act in the best interest of the membership with 2/3 board approval. So we didn't have any kind of a clause. And in fact, many nonprofits did not have anything like this in their bylaws until we got to the pandemic. And we realized that there were times, obviously, people weren't meeting and couldn't meet. Sometimes it was against the law to meet. And so we need to have a clause in place, an article in place in our bylaws that allows us to do things like appoint board members and make decisions on those kinds of things when absolutely necessary. And as it says, only in an emergency, only during a pandemic or a natural disaster would we do that kind of thing. So this is like the biggest change that we're suggesting. And this came from advice from other nonprofits, that this was something GSUSA suggested that we should look at and add to the bylaws, because we didn't have this kind of permission in the bylaws to do work if we needed to. And then the last changes are just changes that would be of record of the things, the kinds of things that you wouldn't necessarily have to vote on. We would, because we were adding article, we would change the number of this final article about amendments, and then we would also change the date. We would add in the date 2024 if these changes were approved. So did anybody have any question about the bylaws and the changes to the bylaws? And I promised you, and I forgot about it. Let me go back. I promised you a moment. Okay, Anne Marie.
Yes, I asked a question in the chat. I wondered if the that change to the bylaws that allows the people to participate electronically means that meetings in the future will be hybrid.
It does not mean that. It means that it could be. It does not mean it has to be. It means that it could be. So
it can be.
It could be. It allows us to do it. It doesn't say we have to do it.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I've got so many windows open. I didn't see the chat. So thanks for pointing that out.
That's not a problem. Not a problem at all.
Yeah. Thank you. So I promised you that we'd look at something scope related. And so in this particular case that we're talking about electronically communicated. So we're changing it from mailed, emailed, or faxed to mailed or electronically communicated. Can someone come up with a way that we might communicate that would not be within the scope of this question, with the scope of this change? And I'm asking you to be really creative and think back in time.
Use the Pony Express?
Exactly, Gail. Exactly. Pony Express. How about carrier pigeons?
Phone tree.
Okay, a phone tree. That's another. That's an example. How about would the telegraph be included?
I was wondering if that was electronic or not. I was going to say telegraph, but I think it's electronic.
See, and thank you, Betty. I think it would be electronic. So I think telegraph would be included in electronic communication. So
Smoke signal?
Amo, go ahead.
Smoke signals?
Smoke signals, another. How about semaphore? Semaphore. So
a message in a bottle.
Yeah, message in a bottle. Absolutely. It would be a long time waiting for that message to get there. We'd need more than 30 days. That would be another change. So I wanted to make it a little fun and think of this as one that's language related versus numbers related for scope of the questions. All right. Any other thoughts or suggestions about the bylaws? I'm going to stop sharing so that I can see all of you better and see the other things. Excellent. So this is the time that I want to make sure you know that if you're ever reading the bylaws, and I'll get to you, Debbie, in just a second. If you're ever reading the bylaws and you think, wow, that should be changed, you can submit a form to the, you can send an email to mvc@gsvsc.org, or like in everything, there is a form on the council website you could fill out and send it in. And you could let us know, wow, I've read this and I think that this needs to be considered for a change. Every year, the deadline for anything like that is the same deadline as the deadline to get the delegates elected, which is and this year it happens to be November 20th. That would also be the deadline for you to let us know about anything else you'd want to be considered to be on the agenda for the annual meeting. So we have that deadline set, so we have enough time to do the work we need to do before the board meeting in December, so we can set, and that's when we set the agenda for the annual meeting, is at the board member meeting in December. All right, Debbie.
Just as a follow-up to what Anne Marie asked, although you're not obligated to offer that Zoom opportunity for the in-person meetings and vice versa, I think it would be a nice option to have it available, because in this particular case this year, this was the only one that could be done virtually. And if we couldn't attend any of the others personally, this was it. And if we had not been available tonight, we would not have been able to be a delegate or an alternate.
We had 2 virtual meetings. We had one on a Saturday and we had one tonight. We've had 2 virtual meetings.
I just think that it spreads the opportunities out a little bit better for people to be able to do that. I mean, unfortunately, I was not available that Saturday. A lot of people are not available on Saturdays for whether it's virtual or not. If you can't be there in person, there might be a real good reason you can't be there virtually either. So
I get that, Debbie, and that's why we had 2 virtual meetings this year and had 2 in person. And one of the challenges of in-person meetings, if you're trying to do them hybrid, is finding a place that you have a signal and can do it hybrid. There's just a challenge there. So we're doing the best we can with that, but we did choose this year to have the 2 in-person meetings, and we had pretty good attendance at our 2 in-person meetings this year. And then we had the one Saturday virtual and the one weeknight virtual this year. Absolutely can look at having not a Saturday virtual one in the coming years, but that was just something we wanted to try this year to see how attendance was. Gail.
Oh dear. Is this working better?
Yes, we can hear you now.
No. Basically, what I wanted to say is, last year we had a hybrid option for annual meeting, and it was in a room that had all these echoes and you heard everything else. When we did the Zoom during the lockdown, it worked better because you didn't have, the big room, and the sound was probably fine there, but the folks who tried to dial in, it was just a mess. You couldn't understand a thing.
Well, and we're trying to figure out the internet capabilities. At the time when we did the last annual meeting, you're correct. We need increased internet capacity, which is something we're trying to address.
We already have it.
Yeah,
we now have 4 actual routers out there. However, I think the biggest change is Holly. I think the biggest change that the board discussed, and if Diane and Holly want to share, is that the annual meeting this year will be in person. We will have the 1 option, not the 2.
And ladies, if there's someone that is from a service unit that has not voted for delegates yet, that please encourage them to have elections and appoint people as delegates, and we will get them trained.
Betty,
is it possible for somebody who's can't make the meeting, something has come up, or there's a last minute emergency, can they listen to the recording and still have that count?
Yes, that's why we're recording. That's exactly the reason we're recording this meeting, to allow that. And if necessary, I'll hold another one-on-one meeting with them if I need to. Okay. We will make sure people get trained. We'll make sure people get this part of it handled. But we record the meeting for exactly that reason.
Great, thanks.
And Holly, that question came up. I know Barbara just said, like, there's a couple people who've reached out that are interested in being delegates. If you'd like to address that, if their service unit's not holding an election, I've referred them to the membership voice committee email to contact you directly. But if you'd like to say anything, there might be someone on this call that might be interested.
Sure, thank you. I have not seen anything yet, but I have not checked all my email that I've gotten since yesterday. We have the opportunity, if you are in a service unit that isn't meeting or hasn't been able to elect delegates, and you would like to serve as a delegate for that area, if I can get your information, if Membership Voice Committee can get your information, we are able to set up a roster of people that we ask the board to appoint as delegates. So that's a new procedure that was put in place a couple of years ago. And we would absolutely love you to serve as a delegate. So just get me your information and we'll make sure, we'll confirm with you either by phone call or through email, and we'll get you on the list to serve as a delegate in an area that doesn't have an election or a service unit that's doing elections. Thank you. All right. If there's no other questions about bylaws and delegates, we're going to go ahead and give the floor to Nikki so she can talk about some of the things that are going on in the council that you might not have heard since the last town hall meeting.
Thanks, Holly. Yeah, so we've discussed a lot of it. We talked about membership. We are obviously still wanting any girl who wants to participate in Girl Scouts to be a part of that. So please share anywhere that you can. If you have questions, let us know. If you are in a space where you have a troop and you have the ability, and it's not a super troop, or even if it is a super troop and it's divided and you have different leaders for different age groups, and you have room in any of those areas for other girls to join, please make sure that we know that. And if you are not thinking about that, if you would consider that, we would appreciate that. That always helps us when we have people interested and girls interested in joining specific troops because of location or meeting time and day or something like that. I'll kind of give you a quick update of where we ended FY23 with membership. Again, was up over FY22, which we are grateful for, as we hope to see a bounce back after COVID. We hope to see the same as we continue to move forward in each year as we move further away from our pandemic days. Our fund development was really close to meeting goal. This is the first time in several years that it has not actually surpassed the goal. And let me explain to you that the bulk of that is due to grants. And if you remember, there were a lot of grants that were given out because there was a lot of organizations had a lot of money post-COVID and through pandemic aid. And a lot of those places have stopped giving those grants and that funding in the way that they did before. So I will tell you that Melissa and Vicki and the fund development area has worked really hard on identifying new spaces and areas for us to have for grant consideration, including, just so you know, large capital grants that really can help us to make those large improvements at properties where we can have new buildings and the things that at this point are costing a lot of money. And I do want to mention a little bit about that right now. And we talk about that because the funding that we have or the cost of buildings, and I think, you know, you all know this and everything, right? The cost in everything has gone up every year since the pandemic and will continue, I think, for many years to come. But in addition to that, you know, there have been supply chain issues in every sector. So we were talking specifically about our procedure normally is to get 2 to 3 quotes on something before we make a decision to have a contractor come out or even just a vendor to do some service if it's going to be a large expense. And the time it is taking to even get 2 to 3 vendors out to give us quotes is 3 to 4 times longer than it used to be. So, you know, if you have resources or you have connections of people that you know, contractors or in other areas of things that we're looking at, please make sure and share those with us so we can certainly use those resources and any connections that you may have as well to help us make sure that we're moving the council forward as quickly as possible. And programming, we are working on programming every single day. We really, again, want this to be girl-led, as the mission says. I'm, again, going to put in a plug for, there's a girl survey, an older girl survey that has been out. And we really want to hear from the girls specifically what they're interested in. Not that that's the only thing that we're gonna do, but we certainly want to make sure. We've had to cancel programs here recently because they haven't had met the minimum and had enough attendance. And so we don't want to be putting out programming that girls are not interested in, or it's not hitting a nerve for them, or it's not something that they're passionate about. So please make sure and share that with everyone and ask those girls, I think, and ask those girls if you know anyone to please complete that survey for us so we can have as much data as possible. Then I think I'm going to end on finances, which I think is always super important. So we don't have audited numbers, as Holly mentioned, but we did end the fiscal year with a surplus, actually about a $5,000 more surplus than we expected. And any surplus in a nonprofit is great. Of course, it just goes right back into delivering our mission and programming and working for the girls and our volunteers and parents to make sure that we can provide back for them. So again, you'll see all of those numbers in our annual report at the annual meeting when we have all of that done. But the other big news that we did share, which was really critical when we think about our finances, and I want to take a moment to thank all of you for your part in making that happen, is the refinance of the loan on Ishimani. This was a situation that when I came 6 years ago, the board and the search committee made it very clear that this was a priority, that we were going to have to be able to refinance this. And as I mentioned, we were in a very precarious financial situation then, to the point that our financial account was not even managed locally. It was in a high-risk department in North Carolina. So we have come a long way in 6 years to move out of the high-risk area, back to being managed locally, to having more than 6 months, in some cases up to more than a year's worth of reserves, to make sure that we have been able to set aside that money for property maintenance, deferred maintenance, to know that we're able to do the things that we do. It is in large part because of the commitment of our volunteers to make sure that our product programs are as successful as they can be. For all of you who give any type of donation to the council, we are incredibly grateful. That is what helps us continue to be able to offer programming to make sure that we can meet the needs of everything that we have to do as a council. So that was a really exciting point to know that we've done that. It is refinanced. It's a 16-year loan. It will not need to be refinanced again. We should have it paid off before then. It is a wonderful new partner out of Blacksburg National Bank, who they gave us incredible rates, not just gave us rates, but in 5 years is willing to revisit to see if interest rates have dropped so that we can have a lower interest rate. So really looking out for the best interest of the council and the girls to make sure that we can still deliver all of the programming and all of the needs and the mission of Girl Scouts. So I want to make sure to say thank you, certainly for your help in getting us to a place where we could do that. And thank you for your help every single day and for all that you do. We cannot do this without you. And I want you to know we know that. And I want you to know how appreciative and how grateful we are for you.
Thank you, Nikki. Does anybody have any questions for Nikki? I want to respond in the chat. There's the question about adventurers. And I think earlier, Amy, you mentioned something about scholarships that are available for adventure events.
I actually put that on there.
Okay,
we
sorry,
have an adventure. You're good. It was while Amy was talking about what she was talking about. We have an adventurer scholarship fund. So all girls can request up to $100 per year. They can stretch that across multiple smaller trips or use it on one big trip. It's kind of up to the girl. At this point, we haven't had a girl request who hasn't received it. It is not needs-based. So any girl is eligible for that. So just wanted to throw out that plug.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for that. I know that when I got to go to Wyoming as a girl, I relied on scholarship money to help go. So there's no shame in asking for scholarship money. It's there for exactly that reason. All right. Okay, so next up on our agenda is to talk a little bit about the Board Development Committee. And I was reminded, I usually talk about Board Development Committee. I ask you, do you know people, do you have a friend who every time you go somewhere with them, they know all the people? Everybody says hello to them. They always, you can't go to a restaurant or to the grocery store or any place without them seeing somebody that they know. And I like to say those are great people for Board Development Committee because they know people in the community. And what the Board Development Committee does is we find people for the board, and we're trying to find a diverse group of people, people who know finance, people who know taxes, people who know contracting, people who know real estate, people who know about communications or marketing or about education or fill in the blank. What kind of expertise might you need to run a business? We're looking for people with that background to be on the board. So we have a well-rounded group of people to help advise as we move forward and make decisions for the council. But I was reminded at our last Open Council Dialogue meeting that there's another kind of person that's also very important as a Board Development Committee member. Sometimes it could be the same person, but it's people who are enthusiastic about Girl Scouting and can have a conversation with someone who's been nominated and explain to them why Girl Scouts is important and why it would be valuable for them to be on the board. So Board Development Committee members are both of those kinds of people. They're kinds of people who know people in the community, and they're kinds of people who are enthusiastic about Girl Scouting and knows how to talk about the program and explain why it's important and why it's relevant today. So with that being said, if you know anybody who you think would be good at that kind of a role in Girl Scouting, please let us know. And you can send that information to the info at GSVSC address, or there is a form on the form site that you can fill out. But what we need is the name of the person and their contact information. One thing that we ask is to make sure you've asked that person before you nominate them. It's always polite to make sure that you made sure that they're willing to at least consider it. If you don't know how to ask that person, or you just know somebody in the community that you'd like us to reach out to and ask, we can do that too. just let us know if you haven't talked to the person, because it's a different approach for us to reach out. We're also always looking for board members. So if you happen to know somebody who it would be good, you think would be a great nonprofit board member for Girl Scouts, you can send their name and their contact information the exact same way. And thanks, Jennifer. You've been a great partner in this meeting, putting all the things I talk about in the chat. Thanks so much for that. I feel like I have a personal assistant. Thank you, Jennifer. So that's the piece about the board development committee and board members. And we're just always looking for people, and you're all out in the community and you know people. So if you happen, if there's somebody you think, wow, that person would be great on the board, please let us know. And the other thing I'd like to let you know for sure too, is that as a operational volunteer, you are able to serve on the board development committee. So you can consider that as an opportunity. And I know I've both been on the committee and chaired it. And it's an interesting peek in behind the curtain of how all the decisions are made. There are interviews that we do. And just like all of our volunteers, we do background checks. We do all the same things that we would do to vet a person to be a leader. They don't have to do leadership training. Obviously, they do other training. But anyway, if you know someone who'd like to be a board member, please send their name forward. Okay. The next up piece is, and I'm glad we have some time to do it, is to talk about what you've been doing in your service units. And I want to do some celebrations of things that you all are doing or have done or are planning to do, and any challenges that we could find. But I'd really like to spend some time celebrating the fun things that you're doing with girls. And I just leave the floor open to you all to just popcorn in with things that you'd like to talk about. Let me ask, is anyone going to go to a parade or participate in a parade the next month?
We have 2 parades in Charlottesville that we're going to be doing.
Are they both Christmas parades, or what are they?
Yeah, both holiday parades. They're both on the first week of December.
Excellent.
One in Crozet and one in the city of Charlottesville.
And are your girls going to dress up? Once upon a time, I dressed up like a Christmas tree, and my girls were packages. Are you dressing up, or are you just marching?
Well, see, I'm not going to be participating. My girls are older. They don't do that anymore. But we have some cookie costumes and some other things. So one of the things we're working on here in Charlottesville is my oldest daughter is finishing up her Gold Award, and we have a service unit library. I'm not sure how many other service units maybe have that, but we've had one for a long time with things like cookie costumes in it. And so she launched she created an app where you can check out items from the library and different librarians in our service unit and check out things like flags for the parade or costumes or whatever, and then return them. And so it'll be interesting to see, over the coming weeks, how the app can help people get some resources that they need for these things like parades and stuff that we're doing, and hope it will be helpful.
Well, that's excellent. I love that. That sounds like a lot of fun. My girls were juniors when we did that, and I was holding a pole with different size hula hoops and streamers that made me a tree, and I was dressed all in green, and they were in boxes that they'd wrapped in paper, and they walked around us, and we actually won that year. That was, I don't know if they still do that, but in Blacksburg they would give awards for the best groups, and we actually won a little money that went towards something we did. But that was a very long time ago. All right,
Hey,
go ahead.
Holly, this is Barbara. Is the mobile STEM van available to be with us in parades?
I'm going to leave that up to somebody who is on staff to answer, because I do not know that answer.
Barbara, you'll need to reach out to us, and there's a form that ask a series of questions to answer that. So yes, reach out to us and we can answer that for you. Specific. It depends on the event.
Does it have a hitch by chance so it can pull a wagon that girls can sit in?
It does not.
Oh,
okay.
I believe the last time we had that request a year or two ago, anyway, I believe at that time our insurance company did not allow that. But Jody and I can check on that.
It doesn't, Sandy. You're right.
Gosh, because that would be an excellent idea.
That way we get to show off our van and our interest in STEM.
All right, so there's okay, there's just please look at the chat. There's so much stuff going past in the chat. Lots of parades. There is.
I know. I love seeing all the stuff they're doing. It's great.
Camporee. There is the Virginia Tech Science Festival is coming up. This weekend. So if you don't have any plans for this weekend, there's something for you. That's a nice program. Anything else you all are doing? I love that library idea.
Well, hopefully we'll be able to share it with other folks. I've talked to the adventurers too, like about maybe using the app for that too. And because we're such a large service unit, we have a lot of things. We have a lot, like someone donated 3 sewing machines to our service unit. So then girls can, then learn how to sew and things like that. So my hope is at some point we'll be able to expand it and allow people, especially in nearby smaller service units. Like I live in Fluvanna, but I am part of the Charlottesville unit. But like Fluvanna or Nelson or some places that are a little bit smaller than us who might need resources, we might be able to share some more resources that way.
That's excellent.
Thanks.
I think we were needing delegates from Fluvanna.
Oh, really? Well, I can't be a delegate because I'm in Charlottesville. But do we not have any from Fluvanna right now?
I think we're looking for some for Fluvanna. So if you know somebody in Fluvanna who might be interested in being a delegate, please send their name our way and we can reach out.
Well, I'm sure we have I've met quite a few girls in particular from Fluvanna. So let me see if I can drum up some interest in it, even from the girl perspective, because
as long as they're opportunity for that. As long as they're 14 or older, they can serve. Yeah.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Oh, and it was great to see Bronze Award. Thank you. That's great. I mean, it scrolls by so fast. It's hard to catch everyone's, but thanks for this is all great stuff. I want to go back and look and see if I missed lots of Christmas parades, another Bronze Award. I love to hear about people doing their Bronze Awards. And your Janet, your daughter, was that her Silver Award you said? Gold Award. I thought it was a lot for a Silver Award. I thought that was an awful lot for a Silver Award. I was going to say, wow, what is she going to do for a Gold Award?
It's a lot.
Yes. I mean, developing an app, I've done it. I know how hard it is. Have you all, I want to make sure we talked about it at the very beginning, but I forgot to make sure I said it again. Jody, do we have anybody who is in a room with more than one person? Do we have everyone recorded? That I want to make sure everybody gets credit for having been here. If you don't have multiple names already on your name on the meeting, just reach out in the chat and let us know you're here, because the chat gets recorded and we can go back and look to make sure that you're recorded as being in the meeting.
I do believe I changed everybody that reached out, but yes, if there's anybody that I missed, please let me know.
Thanks, Jody.
I tried to update the ones I knew.
That's neat. The garbage pail trail. Just reading along. All right. Well, we don't have to stay for the next 10 minutes. I will happily give you back 10 minutes of your time. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you sharing. I know that there's frustrations at times, but I meant to say at the very beginning of this meeting, every single one of us does this because we love Girl Scouting. We wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be doing it. We certainly wouldn't be spending hours of our time on meetings if we didn't love it and believe in it. And all of our council staff members are Girl Scouts too. And they also strongly believe in our program and do their very best to get you what you need. Making sure that we can try and help in any way we can to make it easier for all of us. I really appreciate you being here tonight, and thanks so much. And I look forward to seeing you at the annual meeting, if not before. Take care and have a good night.